Welcome everyone to today's weekly web chat. I'm Darcy Backyard with Prairie Public, and joining me today to talk all about North Dakota resources to fire up your kids about North Dakota history is Danielle from the North Dakota Historical Society. Thanks for joining us this afternoon.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
And tell us a little bit about your job at the Historical Society.
Well, I have a fairly new position here. It's a lot like what I've been doing for several years. I do outreach, and I've been working with museums around the state for several years to just provide them professional development services. And now my role has shifted to work more in line with our North Dakota Studies program, which is our school curriculum. So I'll be working more closely with teachers, educators around the state, and helping to promote the North Dakota Studies program.
Fantastic. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of resources, and the link to this resource deck is in the video description. And note, there is a contact there for Danielle. So if people have questions, they can reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you're going to, again, our goal is to talk about some of these amazing resources, because the State Historical Society and the North Dakota Studies site is just jam-packed of stuff that people can use to explore North Dakota history. So if I'm a teacher and I'm coming to this resource page, where would you suggest that I start?
The first page we like to direct teachers to is the North Dakota Studies website.
Okay.
And this is our main resource for educators in the state. It has our 4th grade curriculum, our 8th grade curriculum. We do have some high school resources on this site, but that's the next level that we're focused on developing, is getting an online version of our high school curriculum.
Good to know.
Yeah. And then we've got we have so many projects and programs that have been developed over the years that we're trying to figure out how all these tie together. We've got just a block of teacher resources in addition to the 3 specific curriculums.
Oh, this is a great place. So let's pretend that I'm a 4th grade teacher. Do you have any recommendations of how I might dive into this curriculum resource?
If you click on the web-based units, all of our curriculum is in these books that have been developed for 4th grade.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So these are the print versions of the books that teachers are familiar with in their classrooms. They're almost all online. As you can see, the only one that's not online here yet is the citizenship one.
Sure.
Otherwise, all the other print books are also available for free online.
Oh, this is great. So then I click on that book and it takes me to that unit and the various, oh, this is great. So I have all of the curriculum, the different parts, some questions for studies, and it just goes right through all the resources that I would need to explore that content.
Right. And the pages, the framework for this is very familiar. For anybody who's familiar using the print textbook, they're going to recognize this layout.
That's great. So a nice way, I could also see having students be able to use this. If you don't have enough of those books, this is a great way to have those students jump in and be able to explore, maybe as jigsaw groups, if you and have different groups researching one component of North Dakota history, and then they're responsible for creating a presentation and teaching the rest of the class about it.
Exactly. That's what our vision is for how this will be used. This is a dynamic resource that's used online in the classroom or at home or in a library, anywhere where you have internet service. Anybody, anywhere in the world can access this and use it.
Sure. And there's this nice, I see some of these side links, additional resources for teachers that sets up kind of, this looks like just like a nice outline of the goals of the different units.
Right.
And some of that narrative background of what are you trying to accomplish for these different components.
Right. The 8th grade unit is a little bit more sophisticated than the 4th grade, as you would expect. Similar themes, but broken up in a slightly different way. This has a lot of primary source material. The actual documents, the actual photos, maps, the real things that historians like to look at to understand what happened in history. We have a lot of that embedded in this. We have some of that embedded in the 4th grade too, but this is the 8th grade version is a really rich resource for actual primary source information.
So all of the things that a teacher would need to print off in order to have that hands-on experience for the students to really be looking at a variety of nonfiction texts
right
that connect them to that historical time period.
Yeah.
Thinking of like being able to use these primary documents to really recreate what it was like to be part of living in North Dakota in some of these different time periods.
This lends itself well to a project-based type of curriculum.
And then there are additional resources just for teachers here as well. Can you tell us a little bit about like what we're going to find in this section of the teacher resources?
Well, one of my personal favorite resources that's listed here is the North Dakota Studies trunks. And there's about 18 different topics that we have where we send trunks out to teachers, educators around the state.
Like actual physical trunks of materials that get sent to a school.
Yeah, and they're filled with objects and photos and just all kinds of, mostly objects. And they go out to teachers across the state. And right now we've got our order form on the website, but what's coming next is we're going to have all the teacher guides from all the trunks available on this website as well. So teachers can download the teacher guide before they get a trunk. They can see what's in it, what kind of activities are there. That will all be, we're adding them online as we finish reviewing each teacher guide.
Oh, that's going to be very helpful for teachers to be able to plan ahead and make those connections, and in a pinch, maybe be able to draw from some of those lessons, even if a box doesn't happen to be available when they want it or need it. And look at these topics. I mean, every single subject is tackled in going through here, of the fossils and early peoples, the frontier military, looking at the night sky and energy development. I mean, this is really a wide range of trunks that kids could have this hands-on kind of lab experience right in the classroom.
Exactly. And that's that's my big project right now, is to make sure that all the trunks are clearly aligned to the North Dakota Studies curriculum, so that it's obvious for teachers to understand which trunks they might want to use at different times.
Nice.
And we have 2 copies of each trunk available, but they are reserved very quickly. They can be hard to get, especially our Native American trunks. They're very popular.
I could see.
One of the reasons we want to get the teacher guide online is that would be a great way then that teachers could work with their local county historical societies they can't get our trunk, but they can get the teacher guide and work with a local museum. Or if they can't afford to bring their kids here or don't have time to bring their kids here, they could work with a local museum to develop something similar for the schools in their area.
That's a great reminder that most counties and even some cities have their own historical society that would be a great resource for exploring some of these same topics.
Right.
And so there is,
to the Heritage Center in Bismarck, there's still a lot of museums around the state, a lot of historic sites around the state. Some of them are ours, but they're not all ours. State Parks has several historic sites in their parks. Every county except Slope County has a museum of some sort in their county. So there's a lot of places that people can visit if they can't make it here.
That's a great reminder. And there's a small, a minimal charge that's really, that's basically just handling and kind of getting something ready for you. And then
Right.
how long can teachers utilize these trunks?
Typically, they can have them for a 2-week period,
Okay.
but I'm really flexible on teachers ask for extensions all the time, especially if they're coming to pick up a trunk. We're
Mm-hmm.
trying to make these affordable and easy for teachers to use. So if they're going to come and pick up a trunk here, but they're not going to be back to Bismarck for a month, all they have to do is ask me for an extension. And if nobody else has asked for that trunk in the same time, I'm happy to let them keep it for a few weeks longer.
That's fantastic. That is a great resource. So that is underneath these teacher resources, those North Dakota Studies trunks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so tell us a little bit about the National History Day in North Dakota competition.
The state competition is coming up in April, April 12th. It's Friday, and there are regional competitions that have already happened. The competition will be here at the Heritage Center on the 12th.
And this is an annual competition that students can participate in.
It is.
Right.
And are there certain age ranges that this is targeted for?
There are 2 different categories. One is 6th, 7th, and 8th, and then high schoolers.
Nice.
Okay, and so there's papers, exhibits, performances, websites, or documentaries, and they can be individuals or a group of up to 5.
That's really cool. I mean, we were just talking about project-based learning. What a great way to embed a project right into a class, have that be part of your 8th grade social studies unit, have it be part of a different unit at the high school level. And that project-based experience, the website, the documentary, the presentation that culminates from that PBL can be part of this competition as well.
And then they could go on to the nationals if they win at state.
So again, that information is here in the teacher resources page that you can click through and get some of that information. You've got that educator page. So this is a little bit different, this page for educators. What are some of the things that I'm looking at as a teacher coming to the educator page?
This is a page within the main website for the State Historical Society of North Dakota, our agency page. The North Dakota Studies is a separate website connected to this, but this is if teachers wind up coming to our main website first before they go to North Dakota Studies, they can also get to North Dakota Studies through this page, through the Educators tab. And they can find some of those other resources that we've talked about, the trunk program, the National History Day, some of the resources that educators look for most often, our newsletter, how to schedule a visit.
I was just going to say, let's talk a little bit about that. Like, you have all these amazing online resources and you've got the trunks that can go out. But if a teacher does have the time and ability to come and see you, how do they do that?
We ask that they schedule a visit just simply so we have an idea of how many groups are coming.
Okay.
But there's no cost associated with that or anything. It's just for us to help manage, how many staff we might need on hand and the logistics from our perspective. But it's a free resource. We just ask that they register their group so that we have a heads up how many kids we might have in a day.
And you and I were talking about this a little bit before. What if I'm in a far corner of North Dakota and the time that works best, it's in the winter and I don't want to risk travel and I don't have a bus or I can't afford to come to the museum? Are there opportunities for me to talk to people at the museum, even if I can't actually physically get there?
Yeah, we haven't done a lot of that yet. We have some of our paleontologists have explored using Skype in the classroom more than the rest of our staff has.
Okay.
But it's something that we're exploring and that we're we're interested, if there are teachers out there who'd like to do something with us, we'd be interested in having a school to work with to do some type of prototype.
That's just a great opportunity. So if a teacher was interested and willing, with that fair heads up that it hasn't, that they would be kind of the guinea pigs to do this. But what a great design thinking and learning experience for the students, you know, to have them know we're going to be the first, and like they get to be the pioneers getting to do this experience. They can just reach out to you, that email that's on the resource page.
Right. And if there's specific backgrounds, professionals here that they're interested in talking to, a paleontologist or an archaeologist or somebody who works in our library and archives, we can help set up those type of Skype interviews, and we can help set up different type of, you know, remote tours and things like that through the internet. We haven't done a lot of that yet, but we've been talking a lot about what does that look like for our organization.
One of the things that I would encourage is a teacher or a group of teachers to come and do a pre-visit and perhaps meet with one of us so we can walk them through and show them how to use the resources that are in the galleries.
Absolutely.
Oh, so that's so that the teacher could be the tour guide if they are able to come and do an in-person visit.
Right. One of the things that we're trying to help people understand is thinking about a museum like you would think about a library. And how does a teacher teach his or her students how to use a library? We're trying to explore that same concept here in the museum, where if you haven't been to a museum before, it can be kind of intimidating for people to come here. And a lot of people know there are rules, but they don't necessarily know why, what those are. And the only way to teach people is by having them come in the door and explore the space. So they think of the museum as a library, and how do you learn to use the library? Well, you go and you check books out and you research, and the teachers a lot of times have to do some preliminary work. They don't just show up at the library. They make an appointment with a librarian and talk about what projects the kids are working on. We would like to set that framework for how we run our tours and programs and curriculum here at the Heritage Center also.
And that's really just about maximizing the time, maximizing the learning for the teacher and the students. If there are specific curricular outcomes and curriculum goals, you can really get a sense of that. And that's a great reminder too of just that, what are kind of the rules of visiting a museum. I think that's a great invitation and opportunity for students to learn what are the expectations for behavior and for interacting at different types of sites.
Just like you learn how to use a library, if you're bringing your students here, sometimes all you want is to have a fun day where everybody tries to see a lot of stuff. But that isn't necessarily what every trip should look like. And sometimes that's all a field trip is to just introduce kids to the museum and try to see a lot of stuff. Sometimes teachers will have a more focused program where they might have like a scavenger hunt or something. But the museum can be a really deep dive into a specific topic that a teacher is looking at. So not every visit can or should be trying to see the whole thing in one day.
Good point.
Decide to come here because they're talking very specifically about one topic. They're talking about the fur trade, and they want to come and see just a few objects that relate to what they're talking about in the classroom. And by thinking in those library terms, you know, we have an actual library and archives here on site that a lot of people don't always know about, or if they do know about it, they really don't know how to use it. So by working with us and by keeping that library concept in mind, you can visit and learn how to do a really deep dive on a specific topic. Learn how to use our archives and library to find documents and primary source information. And it can be really intimidating for people. It can be intimidating for adults and teachers. And kids are really easily overwhelmed by that. but the best way to get them comfortable is to just bring them in here and show them the ropes.
You can create the experience that you want and need students to have.
Right.
And you can have much deeper and much richer connections to that history, that culture, and that content, and those skills that you're wanting kids. I mean, the English teacher in me, all I kept hearing you say was, we're teaching them how to research. And so, of course, my heart was happy because the English teacher in me is like, yes, everyone should enjoy researching. But what a great opportunity. And again, it goes back to some of the things that you were saying about that PBL and what are the kids interested in, and having that authentic connection. And there's just way too much stuff to see.
Right.
Right. So you can skim the surface and just kind of basically have to go on a whirlwind tour, or you can slow down and really be able to appreciate and pay attention to and learn a lot of specific and the details of specific artifacts and specific exhibits for students.
Right. And when we work with the general public and show them objects, one of the things that we want people to understand is that objects are primary sources, just like,
yes,
yeah, just like a photograph is the primary connecting piece to a specific event or a person or a time in history. Objects are that primary source also. And we can learn a lot from studying objects, just like we study photos and papers and diaries and all kinds of paper-based materials. The objects tell us just as much. So we have exercises that we do with people where it's kind of a combination of playing 20 questions and being a forensic scientist, where we look at an object and is this man-made or is this natural?
Mm-hmm.
Is this made recently? Is there some type of factory mark on there to indicate it was mass-produced, or was this handmade by a craftsperson? Can we tell from the object who might have used it? Is the owner's name on the object?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole new way of thinking for a lot of people. They don't necessarily think about objects that way, but every object has a history. Even really abstract concepts have a history. What's the history of sound in your community? What's the history of love? You can get really abstract about what is history and what kind of things have a history, but every object that you can physically touch quite literally has a history of its own. And our job is to get out what is that story? What can we figure out? Some items are really hard to figure out because we don't have that information connected to that object anymore. Mm-hmm. But anytime we have that story connected, what can we learn about this item, and why was it saved? Why was it preserved? Why did it matter to somebody? How did it get to be here in the museum? That's really what we want to guide our students to think along those lines.
And my brain, as you were talking, Danielle, I'm thinking of 10 different activities, and what a great opportunity to have your kids have this. I'm thinking of a different way of doing a PBL, right? And that conversation that journey that you just took us on of thinking about, and again, the English teacher in me basically says, how do we read this object?
Exactly.
I do a lot of training on media literacy, and I always say that media is anything that you read, and anything is media. So whether it's an advertisement, an object, a CD cover, whatever, that's all media, and all of it has different skill sets in terms of how we read it as people, so that you could spark that idea, and then to send students back to their communities and ask them to read the culture and the history that they're seeing in their environment around them. And I could see even a simple, I did this with my juniors and seniors. They had to bring in an object with them in the first week of class, and they had to do a monologue about that object. And that was one of the things that we did to get to know each other. But I could also see like having those objects creating a museum display. Like these are the important objects that represent the people who are in this classroom. So now it also becomes an opportunity to further develop and build that classroom community of helping the students learn about each other and what are those important aspects that make up who that person is and what is important to them. So many different angles that one beautiful story that and lens that you just laid out for us about the importance of reading objects in a museum could really unlock just so much potential in a classroom.
Right. And it's a great way to really be, interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary. How does music relate to this object we're looking at? How does physical activity relate to the object we're looking at?
Good.
What kind of science and STEM issues can we get at related to, if we're looking at a telephone, well, what's the history of the technology of the telephone?
Yeah.
You can teach that in your science class, in your history class, your social studies class. There's a lot of ways that teachers can be, really, really creative about how they approach these topics and these resources.
So now I need to schedule a visit to the Historical Society. So whether you as a teacher can bring your students there in person, whether you go in order to have some of these conversations and bone up on some of these skills so you can take them back to your classroom. That's kind of the one final question, because I know that you as an organization also do provide professional development for educators. And that is another service in addition to all of the services and resources that we've already talked about. If I'm an educator, how can I find out more about the professional development opportunities that the Historical Society helps support?
Well, a great start is to contact me.
Okay.
With the contact information you provided earlier.
Yep, so
a lot of information. A lot of educators know my colleague Eric Holland, and a lot of the educators around the state know our colleague Neil Howe. Any of us can help provide information, but certainly don't hesitate to contact me. We do have a workshop we're planning for this coming October.
Okay.
I don't believe we've really started pushing a lot of information about that yet, but we have a newsletter coming out soon that I think might include some save the date information. And
so a nice catch-all would be sign up for this newsletter here.
Yes.
So that you're on that email list so that you receive information about events as they're coming up.
Yep.
It looks like you also have on the North Dakota History Educators page a calendar of events that people could also check out some of the things that are going on.
And this calendar tracks events going across all over the state at our different historic sites.
Yeah, so if you're looking for a cool date night activity, you need to like get out and learn a little bit about North Dakota history, some culture, but just so much stuff going on that to help you learn about North Dakota, right? And the whole goal of all of this is to make kids excited about this really cool place. Give them that cultural awareness and some of that local pride of what it means to be a North Dakotan. And it's all right here, just ready for students and teachers to explore.
Absolutely.
Thank you both so much for hopping on and sharing these great resources. I hope that a lot of people, I know a lot of people are already using these resources, but I hope that you have all kinds of Skype appointments coming up in this next school year. In addition to all of those amazing resources from the North Dakota Historical Society, there are a few additional collections that I just want to point out available for free through PBS Learning Media. So we do have this North Dakota and Minnesota Regional Studies collection, and I've linked in the slide deck to a few different specific collections, but I will highlight, if you click on the plus sign on the left within this collection, you can see that there are a few additional topics including some cool North Dakota moments in North Dakota sports, some beautiful visual arts projects throughout different communities in Minnesota and North Dakota, as well as some great music, geography, history, and even science and engineering. So within the history collection, there's some interesting information about immigration and a nice way to maybe talk about the roots of North Dakota with this Germans from Russia collection. And they do talk about the food that they're making and just kind of some of the traditions that they've brought in. The territorial expansion collection, if you scroll down, I think there's a better connection on the North Dakota Historical Society website to talk about Native American cultures, but there are some conversations and some short videos toward the bottom after the homesteading about the impact on Native American cultures. In addition to those stories, there's also the Prairie Memories, the World War II interviews. And these are North Dakota veterans talking about their experiences in World War II. So again, you can see relatively short clips, 4 to 10 minutes long, but a great way for you to bring in voices of North Dakotans as you're exploring different moments in history. In the Great States collection, there will be some of the same videos, but the content is organized a little bit differently. You can see that it's organized into different units that have different themes. So geography and climate, American Indians, early exploration, etc. And when you click on that subtopic, there will be a variety of lesson plans. Within that lesson plan, it has for you the learning objectives that the standards that will be met, as well as all of the resources that you would need to use for that conversation. Not exactly a North Dakota resource, but if you're talking about North Dakota history and you're exploring the path of Lewis and Clark, this PBS World Explorers collection has lesson plans connected to a variety of explorers, and there is an entire Lewis and Clark collection. Same thing, it breaks down some different activities, some different things that you would want to use, the journals. So again, what Danielle was talking about, some of those primary texts to help students explore. In addition, this collection has some Google Earth Voyager stories that are connected to maps of the United States. So when you go to the Lewis and Clark and you launch that lesson, you get this Google Earth journey that follows the trail of Lewis and Clark. So students can explore the different stages and make some connections on actual physical maps for where Lewis and Clark went on their journey. And so it gives them this little overview, and then you can see the different points along that trail. And when you click on Discover, it will take you to the starting point of that journey. So then you can zoom in and out and kind of get a sense of the scope of that entire journey with some videos embedded right in there. And then you just click through this slide deck and can explore the rest of that trail. So that's in the Explorers collection, the Google Earth option. And then finally, just want to share Dakota Datebook, just because this is a fun way to bring in a daily dose of North Dakota history. And there's a short clip every single day, and those are archived here. The topics are pretty random, and so it's a nice way to have different stories, but you can see they're a couple minutes long. I loved this one just a couple of days ago, talking about the war between North and South Dakota and us being rivals about which place is actually colder. It was a pretty funny little conversation about why the Dakota Territory ended up becoming 2 states. So some nice conversations and resources there. And just like Danielle, if there's anything that I can do to support you or a resource that I can help you find, feel free to reach out to me at Prairie Public. And enjoy.